UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak decided that it would be a really, really fun idea to stand out in the pissing rain and declare a snap election for July 4th. What a legend. Who does that? Stands in the pissing rain to say, hey guys, can you vote me out quicker? Because ultimately, I think the Tories losing in the UK election this year is almost a foregone conclusion. The only saving grace would be a Reform Party coalition with them, and that would require some pretty favourable results. I mean, it's not out of the question, but I don't even follow UK politics close enough to really know if there is any viable option outside of that, or even if that is remotely likely. I mean, we're talking about the Tories who are polling sub 20%. Sub 20%. It makes Jacinda Ardern's fall from grace look like nothing. I mean, the Tories have been in charge 14 years. It is a very long time. And so for them to be in a position where they're sub 20%, they've had 5 prime ministers in three terms. I mean, who's going to vote for them? No, not a single person in the UK I spoke to likes how the Conservatives are managing the country at the moment. And either it's because they're not being conservative enough, or they're failing miserably to actually succeed in the application of their policy. Outside of that, they just don't like Tories. But of course, this raises concerns because unless you've been sleeping, Labour governments aren't particularly good either. Australia saw that Labour was maybe a good idea to oust their coalition, right? Oust their Liberal Nats. How's that going for them? At the start, they're like, oh, yeah, this is okay. Even I actually had a little bit of kindness to share towards Anthony Albanese initially. But I think pretty quickly, the sentiment around Albanese's Labour government in Australia is wearing off. I mean, we look at our Labour government, right? Our previous Labour government, their first term was only saved by COVID. Without COVID, they were a one-term government. And then after COVID and after Jacinda Ardern, her entire manipulation of the nation wore off, she went from, 50% in the polls to low 20s. Well, her high 20s before she had to resign in less than 2 years. I mean, that was the position that she was in. She was that disliked in the end because people realized that she was full of it. People realized she wasn't actually succeeding. People realized that there is actually a lot that is going wrong here. And it's not just in the general governance of things, but the entire ideological landscape of society. And I would argue that there is more risk at the moment in many Western nations that relate to societal views than just the economies as a whole. I think the economies across the world are screwed. I think we've got a massive financial shock coming. But with that aside, I think one of the biggest issues that the UK has to consider here is how is society going to deal with an influx of promotion of gender ideology beyond what they already have? How are they going to deal with what is a very, very different left wing to what they had last time the left were in government there? Because this is the fundamental issue here. There are actually some key reasons why some people in the last election voted for New Zealand First over National, for example. Of course, we're bringing it back to New Zealand here. It is because New Zealand First stood up for some more conservative societal values, whereas National was kind of sticking with the status quo, left-wing, borderline progressive societal views. For example, not pushing back really on gender ideology outside of not necessarily liking some of the sexual health curriculum. There is a very, very big issue in societies right now where the left is able to use the platform that they are given to promote racial and gender division through absolutely ridiculous ideology. Right now, if you're a biological woman who acknowledges biological reality, you are demonized by the left. Demonized, simply because you don't like a grown-ass man using your changing room. And that is a very real threat that societies which adopt a very left-leaning progressive ideology in the modern day, that's a very real threat to you. And whilst the economy in the UK is screwed, whilst the criminal justice sector in the UK is screwed, whilst pretty much everything you can think of over there is screwed. I mean, they had 11% inflation, for goodness sake. The crime rate exploded to ridiculous levels. The problem is Labour actually going to fix any of that? Are they going to improve that to a point where the damage done by the likes of radical gender ideology, the risk to not actually solving the issues around immigration, is any of that worth it? I mean, to be honest, for the UK's sake, luckily their terms are 5 years long because it enables them to see the damage that Labour will be able to do in just 5 years from just in a societal level. And then depending on if they actually successfully do anything with the state of their country and all of their government departments, whether or not those improve enough to counterbalance the risk of the other. It's lucky that their terms are so long so that they have the ability to make a more informed choice come, 2029. I mean, we look at our Labour government here in New Zealand, they were gone burger within realistically 2.5 years, saved by COVID, but then guaranteed to be out within 5 years. And that was because we got to see how they would manage all of the actual important stuff, and that was bad. And then doubly bad, and this opened the door to the likes of NZ First, was the issues around social stuff. Be that gender ideology, be that racial issues, all of that sort of stuff, all rooted in ridiculous progressive ideologies which are just simply dividing the West all over.